All right, everyone, it's Donovan and Dino on a Tuesday night. We welcome everybody in, brought to you by Master Pizza. Taste above all. Download the Master Pizza app and start earning pizza points today with Jim Donovan. I'm Dave DeNatale. And Liz, a weird week. Whenever we get those Thursday night games, it throws everything off for, I think, fans, for broadcasters, and I'm sure for players. It's a different routine because you've got to get your body, whatever bumps and bruises you had from Sunday, you got to get yourself ready to go Thursday night. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Most NFL players would tell you that if you play on a Sunday, the first time your body feels kind of okay is Thursday. And then Friday you might feel better, Saturday, and then you go into the next Sunday. I think across the league, I think NFL players would tell you that they really dislike the Thursday night schedule. But it's a ton of money. In this case, and presently, Fox has paid an amazing amount of money to get the Thursday night package. I don't see it going away.
I don't either.
But yeah, it's a crazy week. So the Browns practiced today, but it was really kind of a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And they'll walk through tomorrow, and then they'll play on Thursday. And I don't think they're doing anything differently in Pittsburgh. I think that's the same schedule too.
Yeah, and it's when you just say with Pittsburgh, it's just different. There's a different feel because it is a rivalry game, and it's been, of course, a very one-sided rivalry since the Browns came back. But yeah, whenever you there's a different feeling this week. I always feel like when you talk about the Browns, and because you never know what's going to happen when you get to the stadium. You never know if you're going to be, kind of overwhelmed by a sea of black and gold and all that kind of stuff. And, in the past, it was always, Roethlisberger's coming. And Roethlisberger always, is a thorn in the Browns' side. There are differences to this game that make it really interesting.
Yeah, there's some. I think a lot of people feel there's great legitimacy, and yet there's concern about the Browns because when you look out on the field, there's a lot of star power on the Browns side of the field. Now, typically you would look on the other side and you'd say, wow, look at the Steelers, and there's Roethlisberger, and there's Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell, and Ryan Shazier, and and so on, and T.J. Watt, and some of them are still there. But a lot of those names aren't there. But for the Browns, you look out there and you go, man, there's star power. And now you've added more star power with Kareem Hunt going in there. That's the legitimate part of it. The concern and the worry part of it is we really haven't seen this thing come together in a flowing manner where you say, hey, they're going to go out and they're really going to put it to the Steelers or anyone else that they play. I mean, the win was terrific and badly needed last Sunday, but it was so hard to get. It really was.
Yeah, it took, you talk about holding on for dear life to kind of get it in. And you're sitting there going, it's supposed to be easier. But I realize this is the NFL, and nothing's supposed to be easy in the NFL, but it's like you sit there and go, well, when we thought about this team this year, it was supposed to be a little easier.
Yeah.
I think we've learned. The Browns might be favored in every game except for the Ravens game the rest of the year, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Nothing about it's going to be easy based on what we saw.
No, and they haven't made it easy themselves. They have played very good teams. Take a look at last night's incredible Monday Night Football game. Well, the Browns played those two teams and, didn't play well in San Francisco, but played pretty good against Seattle and just lost in the end. They had the lead with 9 minutes to go in the game, and they lost the game. But in let's take the last 3 weeks, they've played really good defenses. New England's been playing really good defense. Denver, for whatever their record is, they are terrific on defense. And, the Buffalo Bills were third overall in defense coming into the game and played that way through the ball game last Sunday. So they have played tough defensive teams and good teams. It's been a tough schedule, okay? Not a total excuse. And they're going to play a really good defense Thursday night.
Yeah, it's a different set of big names. You're always used to Polamalu and Shazier and Harrison. And now it's Fitzpatrick and it's Watts. And it's Dupree, and of course it's Joe Haden. It's a kind of a new generation of young defensive stars. With Haden is kind of one of the veterans there, but they've really built themselves a nice new defensive core there.
Yeah, they have, and with two very un-Steeler-like moves within the last calendar year. The Steelers never trade up in a draft, and they traded up to get Devin Bush
Yes.
and bring him out of the University of Michigan, and he joins the Steelers, and he'll be number 55, and he'll be on the field a lot.
You'll see him.
And then the real head scratcher was really early on in the season with Ben Roethlisberger knowingly out for the year. And a lot of people would say, well, that's it, tank it, and see where we are at the end of the year. The Steelers traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick and gave up this upcoming year's first-round draft choice. And that's very un-Steeler-like. Normally they draft, and there's a period of time where those guys that get drafted usually have to wait to get in the lineup, and then they get in the lineup, and then they play for 10 years. This is different, but they've built a very good defense. You mentioned a name, Bud Dupree, who's finally really becoming the player that they thought he was going to be. It's taken longer for him to reach that level than it did for T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt reached it in his first game, which happened to be here. But, I heard somebody say the other day from Pittsburgh, in fact, there was a guy that I used to do games with at NBC, Tunchilkin, who is their radio analyst on their broadcast. And he was on a Steelers show, and he was saying, when you look back at how they've rebuilt the Steeler defense, the key move was getting Joe Haden.
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Because that was like, I remember when they did it. I remember scratching my head because I didn't feel like they weren't, the front office and the coaching staff were not on the same page. From what I remember about that.
That's right. The coaching staff was very upset.
Yeah. And it's just, I think a lot of people thought, well, Hayden's past his prime.
Right. I think there were people, and I'm not saying it was the right move that they made, but if you remember Joe's last 2 years, he missed a significant amount of time with injuries. There was that really weird game in San Diego where Mike Patton was the coach where he injured his thumb or something like that. And they didn't really know it was injured, and he didn't play in that game. And, there were some things that, and they were bad teams. There was no doubt about it. And that was really wearing on Joe, probably more than it was wearing on Joe Thomas.
Right.
But, I mean, I think a lot of people, Dino, thought at the time the trade was made, how much does Joe have left in the tank? But he's resurrected himself there. He's played very well. Had a big interception Sunday.
Yeah, I watched a good chunk of that game on Sunday, and I'm like, man, he looks like he's like 22 or 25 years old. I mean, he's playing young. And the more I thought about it, it's like the move to get Fitzpatrick. While we didn't understand it at the time, it's like, okay, well, if we think our offense is, okay, let's make our defense really good, and maybe that defense. And just enough from Mason Rudolph in the running game can get us into the playoffs with let's be honest, except for Baltimore, we got a struggling Browns team, and not a great division, and maybe a year where we can sneak in as a wild card. I think it's, to this point, since they've made that move, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the playoffs started today, they're in. They are the 6th seed, and they would make it as a wild card team. They have won 4 in a row. They were 1-4. And they were on the side of the road, I mean, with Mason Rudolph in there and, James Conner in and out of the lineup, and he's going to be in the lineup, it appears, on Thursday night. He's missed a couple of games with a shoulder. They've had some injuries on the offensive line, but I think the offensive line is going to be healthy for Thursday night. I'm not giving you any good news here. But I think the offense, you're right, just does enough to not lose the game. But that defense is really good. It's really firing on all cylinders.
I was impressed. They went on that 8-minute drive, ended up having to settle for a field goal. But as I was watching that, I'm like, boy, this is an interesting way to win. It's not necessarily how the Steelers have had to win since Roethlisberger got there. It almost felt like when Tommy Maddox or Cordell Stewart or maybe even Neil O'Donnell were running the offense, where, it was predicated more on we're going to win with our defensive studs, our Woodson, our Lloyd, our Kevin Greens, and you name Polamalu, you name the Hall of Famer. We're going to win with those guys, and our offense just has to kind of get us to where they don't make mistakes and they can run the football and control the ball. And I was impressed in that sense with Rudolph. They always use the term manage the game. He managed the game pretty well.
Yeah, he does. He's gotten better. They say he is a tireless worker. He prepares around the clock. He is known to play the game on Sunday, get in his car Sunday evening from the stadium if they're at home, or they get off the plane and they get home, and call up teammates on the way home from the game and say, hey, on that play that we ran with you, I probably could have done a little bit better there, but maybe you could have done a little bit better. And some of the teammates are saying, hey, unplug a little bit.
Right.
Take an hour or two, let the game,
the
kick
work-life
back.
balance.
Yeah, but they say he's just a tireless worker, a real film rat. I mean, he just watches tape on and on and on, and we'll get him on center stage. It's interesting. I mean, they are now, he is playing himself into forcing them to look at their future and their future with, an aging Ben Roethlisberger when he comes back next year repaired and healthy.
As I was listening to some sports talk on my way in today, there was a kind of an issue with some of the things Baker Mayfield said about the fans and how he would like them to cheer at certain times and not at other times, this, that, and the other thing. I get it. I didn't have a problem with it. I know some fans would prefer that, the Browns win more and then Baker can tell us more, as if talking from a fan's perspective, how to cheer, how to boo, how to do whatever. I understood what he was trying to say, but I also understood the other side of it too. Just go win some games.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier.
Or even more specifically, get a yard.
Right.
I mean, really. I mean, it's 1 yard. I mean, get a yard. I will say this, okay? I did not notice it to be that loud. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, there were a lot of Buffalo Bills fans there, and because the Bills were red hot, they were 6-2 coming in, and I mean they're thinking playoffs. I mean they really are, and deservedly so. But they have a great following, and historically they've had a great following, and they travel well when they're good, and it's a 3-hour drive, so they came to Cleveland. So I mean mathematically speaking, there was a good ratio of Buffalo Bills fans there, and as their defense continued to stuff the Browns on those plays, I think it was them getting louder and louder rather than the Browns fans cheering for what they saw, because what I saw down on that goal line was awful. And it deserved a different kind of cheer, like the Bronx cheer. There was a point, and you'll remember this, that Peyton Manning had total control, like a conductor in front of an orchestra, of his home crowd in Indianapolis, and then for the few years he was in Denver. In fact, there was one time he was peeved at the Denver PA announcer for getting on before a big play that they were up at the line of scrimmage and yelling, "Get loud, Bronco fans!" And he was seething after the game about that. But when you were in Indianapolis, when they would come up on a big play, a fourth down play, or a critical third down, and he would raise those arms, man, I'll tell you what. Hush, don't blow into your instruments. I mean, it was quiet, and it was like being in a cathedral at a high requiem mass.
Yeah.
That might be a double entendre, a high mass.
But it does work. Now, to your point about just get the yard, I thought more about what we talked about yesterday morning, if you didn't get a chance to hear us on After Further Review. This idea that it's more than one reason why the Browns are struggling at the goal line, and short yardage situations. Lack of a fullback, which to me also is a lack sometimes, I think, of recognition of what this team was going to be, maybe going as far back as free agency draft and in that summer off season, trying to say, well, okay, we're going to have Beckham and Landry and Higgins and Callaway, we're going to be a throwing team. No, you're a running team. You've got Chubb. You've got now Kareem Hunt. You're a running team.
Right.
Maybe they didn't recognize that. But the other thing was this idea that you still have to, even though you want to give the appearance like you're going to pound it, you have to spread. This team operates well when they spread out.
Yeah. Well, that's what they are, Right. I mean, and, I think they would like to even be that more, to be quite honest with you. When they're trying to power in, and they're bringing, they're in tight. And when you do that, the mathematics are that you're bringing the defenders in tight too. Joel Bitonio, I mean, he described it. They ran into a 6-man line every time they were up at the line of scrimmage. So there were no gaps.
Right.
There weren't any gaps. They were in every gap. There were 3, and then there were 3 in those gaps. Mm-hmm. So they had 6-man front. It begs, you got to get those guys out of there.
Yep.
Once they did, Higgins was wide open. I mean, they were spread on
Right.
that. You know, they were 7 yards away, though, too. But I think that might be the other way to do it if they're going to continue doing it this way. And the most obvious one now is put the two guys on the field at the same time and let them stop that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be very difficult to stop.
Yeah, Robert says, I think Hunt and Chubb should be in there at the same time. Use play action, quick slants, things like that to be successful. I wasn't sure. All week long we had wondered what the Browns were going to do, and you'd said that was the hope and the thought that they were going to do that. But I loved what I saw with both backs and how they were able to complement each other, pass catching, blocking, running. I thought that makes sense. Instead of just, you see, Chubb will play this series and then Hunt will play the next series.
Right.
This is so much better. So much better to do it this way.
Well, I don't think any NFL team has this kind of combo.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't. I mean, this is a dynamic situation that is in its infancy right now. I mean, think about it. I mean, no other team has this. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got the big back. Like Chubb is, and then you have a third down back that you bring in, like Duke Johnson was here. Kareem Hunt is much more than that.
Yes.
Okay, he is much more than that. And I just think that it's going to be very, very difficult to stop either one of them, but when they're both on the field, where are you going to go?
Right.
Where are you going to go? The only thing I would disagree with what Robert said there is, I'm a little... I don't like the Browns slant game.
Right.
I think it's too close to the line of scrimmage. The thing that I think is missing in the Browns passing game right now is that 15 to 18 yard pass, kind of that mid-range, mid-depth pass that if you watched when Buffalo was moving okay the other day, it was always a 15 to 18 yard pass to that guy Cole Beasley.
That's when they got Beasley going.
Cooper Kupp from the Rams killed them with that 15 to 18 yard pass. Julian Edelman will be a Hall of Famer because of that 15 to 18 yard pass. And we don't have that for some reason.
No.
And I don't know why. I can't give you the answer of it. I don't know why they have it.
Yeah.
They go with quick slants, those bubble screens right on the line, and they're congested, and they involve, those screens right on the line involve a wide receiver making a block. And, they're just not the same thing. I just think that there should be more depth in their passing game. And I'm not talking about bombs.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about 15-yard passes.
Yeah, instead of 2-yard passes or 5-yard passes.
Or 50-yard passes.
And can we petition the team no more shovel passes? Please. No.
I said this on the Red Zone last night. If I see a shovel pass again, I'm going to hit somebody with a shovel. I mean, really.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. It didn't work. Certainly didn't work Sunday. It hadn't worked all year.
It didn't work in New England.
It didn't work in New England. Let's put the kibosh on it and move on. Let's find something else, especially with these two guys. All right. Great stuff here, Jimmy. Are you still going to have the radio show tomorrow, even though it's the day before a game?
Yes, yeah.
Who's your guest?
Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas. So Jim Donovan, Bernie Kosar, and Joe Thomas, Dog Pound Radio on Sirius XM, 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Now, Bernie Kosar, he's the one that broke the Three Rivers hex.
Yes, he was.
He was the one.
In
And
86.
actually, he won a few games over there.
He did.
I remember going over there the day after Christmas. One time, December 26th, I understand that is. And it was the day after Christmas, and it was for the division title.
Yeah.
It was the last game of the regular season. It was for the division title.
I think it was
and
87,
they beat them.
yeah.
The Browns went over there. They didn't win it by a fluke. They beat them.
Yeah.
And I think it was a Saturday afternoon.
I missed when the Browns are relevant, the Steelers are relevant, and you're playing for. I mean, some of those games in '86 and '87, and even '88. Were classics. I mean, we're like the NFL Films Game of the Week, the one where Kosar hit Slaughter at the old stadium in overtime for a touchdown. He threw for 414 yards on his birthday.
Yeah.
Breaking the streak at the streak at Three Rivers. I mean, winning Thursday night would get yourself back, and I feel like you get back into that frame of mind where you're the Browns and the Steelers. It's a rivalry. It's relevant. Oh, by the way, you got to play them in like 2 weeks afterwards.
2 weeks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thanks to everybody for your questions and your comments here on Facebook Live and on YouTube. We're back with you again tomorrow as we get you ready. Browns, Steelers, Thursday night. Again, we're brought to you by Master Pizza. Download that Master Pizza app and earn pizza points today from Master Pizza. Taste above all. For Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching Donovan and Dino here on 3 News Facebook Live and on YouTube.